we are from Chavez. We are presenting the Student Success Project that we have started this year. And again, we are Chavez from Back to the Arts.
And our idea started about 2019, so a couple of years ago, pre-pandemic. We saw that we had this opportunity to support students. Working with students, I was outside of the classroom, and we noticed that there was something going on with students where there was a lot of failed assignments. So it didn't mean necessarily that they were failing the assignments. It was a combination of things. They were failing the assignments, they weren't turning things in, or they were incomplete. So putting all those together, we're like, all right, we have students that have high failed assignment rates. What are we going to do about that? So one thing that we did was pull some of those students after school. I worked with students after school to figure out what was going on, but also to provide them that work. We provided the space, we provided the time, and we provided the support that they needed. And those students were specifically in 8th grade. And that kind of started the ball, this like snowball effect. It was like this snowball, like, okay, you know, it's not necessarily academic for this student. It was not necessarily like they didn't understand the work, or with this student, it was just them trying to focus, and they didn't have that space to focus in the classroom. And by the end of it, the students did really, really well. It was either they needed some academic support, or they just needed someone to say, hey, let's finish this, let's stay on task. This is where like, okay, something is going on here. Maybe we could do something about this. And we looked at data with the principal and the admin team to see, what is going on? Do we see a trend? So in that time we saw, we had this huge opportunity to work with students that are showing these high percentage rates, and to figure out why they have these high percentage rates. Is it because academic, is it something academically is holding them back? Is it because they just need someone to help them focus? Is it that they need support in those executive functioning skills? So we thought, let's take this and run with it.
So our theory of change was that we wanted to have these 5th through 8th grade students with these historically high failed assignment rates and give them those individualized interventions in order to acquire the skills that they were needing.
So as I go back to about 2-3 years ago already, it's gonna be, looking at the students that I worked with, specifically 8th graders, specifically boys, just talking to the students to figure out what is it that they needed. There was a wide range of needs that they had. They all didn't have the same needs. So these are just some of the examples that, I found out that students needed in order to be successful. Some needed just a safe space. They just needed extra time to work. Some did need academic support, that one-on-one support. They just needed some motivation. They just wanted to be in a space where they got along with an adult that they could joke with, play with, but yet do the work at the same time. And there we found like, how can we found it like, yes, this is what we need to do for it. And also, some of them just needed support and like self-advocacy.
At around 9:55, someone will come in and get.
They just need help with like, I don't know how to tell my teacher, I don't get it, or can I have a little more time? And just even doing that with them, it was, yes, we need to continue this work with our students.
What we did is in the beginning of the year, we looked at our SECA schedules and support staff schedules, and we found time where they were able to push into these classrooms. So we paired them with the students whose data we found that needed the support, and we put them into the classrooms during high impact classes where we were noticing that they were struggling the most.
And this was our plan, like after we figure out these are the students that we want to target because of a trend that they showed of having high percentage rate over the last 4 years. We know the data was a little funny because of pandemic, but we still saw that prior to pandemic. So our plan was to ensure that we're pushing classroom intervention, but also developing our support staff, developing their capacity, developing their professional development. So we planned out, okay, this is what we're going to do at the beginning of the year. These are what we're going to do to have check-ins, to do observations. We're going to do deep dives in using data and working with our support staff. So like I said before, support them in their growth, their professional growth, and in their capacity as support. So not everything relies on the teacher, but we're relying on the adults in our building to work with our students.
We measured this by using our Chavez reports that track student grades and student data. We tracked it every 5 weeks. And as you can see, students who were orange were stagnant, students in the red were increasing failure rates, and students in the green were decreasing. We did this every 5 weeks with our support staff and our students.
And here's some of the artifacts that we have available that we shared that principals and school leadership could use. You know, our idea was to use these artifacts, to use these trackers, to use these PowerPoints, to use our plans to support student growth, but also the adult growth. We have an observation schedule. We have an agenda there for our meetings. We have our plan for each individual quarter. We have a data-driven protocol that we have, and also presentations that we shared with our staff members.
And we want these artifacts to really benefit not only student growth, but adult growth as well, because we always know we need to develop our staff in order to see student growth. The funds that we will use these for student support. So making sure that we can expand this program and continue to give the supports to the students. Incentives for the students have been really great in terms of that SEL motivation, and also to continue to develop our staff and include them in this growth process.
And what we learned is that we just want to build the capacity of our adults that are here supporting our students. We want to build, even though we have academics at the forefront for our students, we also want to ensure that we meet all of their needs, like the whole student, social, emotional, executive functioning, self-advocacy, which we are trying to build with our staff in order to do that with our students.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We really appreciate your time.
All right, we have now moved into the Q&A period. Judges?
Could you go back to talk about the breakdown of the funds really quickly?
Yes. So we envision using the funds. We envision this to be able to continue to support students in these classrooms and needing any of the resources they may need. So for example, some of our students, when we were pulling them in a small group setting, we needed to be able to buy some of the resources that we would use. Since we were pulling them into the hallway, we needed to buy little lap desks for them, caddies for them to be able to have their supplies, and just organizational like whiteboard materials that the support staff could use. We also incentivize students. So we did like a quick plan for students who are meeting their goal. We could do a walking field trip to like the neighborhood ice cream store, and just little incentives to continue to support the students. And then also as well, we're using right now school funds to be able to pay for some of the after school professional development that we are giving to our support staff.
And just to add to that, like just in another example for our students, there was a student with one of our support staff. He just needed materials. He needed like a folder, he needed a pencil, he needed an agenda. So we went ahead and purchased those things as well to keep him organized, so we can ensure that like he's getting his work done. Because that was one of the things that we found out, that he didn't have the organizational skills to turn in the work. Work was done, but it was everywhere. So we bought the material, the resources, the material that he needed to keep himself organized. So he's like, yes, I have this here, let me turn that in.
I wanted to say that I like the focus. I mean, it's an age-old problem of kids not turning in work, but that's not necessarily a measure of intelligence or ability at all, but other factors. So it sounds like, Ms. Garcia, you spent time after school sort of getting a sense of what was happening, and then the second stage was then having some of your support staff go into classrooms. Are you still doing the after-school piece, or is it mostly push into classrooms?
After school still happened, not specifically with me. So it did start with a group of 8th graders, 8th grade boys specifically. And that's where it's like, okay, we're getting all this information. It is happening majority of the time push into classrooms, but there are some teachers that are engaging in this work because we are sharing it with our teachers that they're doing it in an after school program.
Got it. Can you go back to the graph real quick? The chart that showed the success levels. I wasn't clear what that was measuring.
So this is
Yeah.
measuring the assignment failure rates for students, which is what we're looking at. So this is the group of our 25 students that we're piloting this program with. And every 5 weeks when progress reports come out and report cards come out, we're making sure to progress monitor. So for quarter 3, week 5, this is where the students were at with their failed assignment rates. This is where they were week 9 because we weren't at week 10 yet. But we're doing this every 5 weeks, and we show these percents to the students as well as to the support staff that they're working with and the teachers.
So what we want to see is the 46 to 29. So failing fewer assignments.
Yes.
Okay. You should figure out what happened to that one student, because something clicked, and the 18 to 8% as well. Yeah.
We dug into that one of the like, what happened? What is going on? It's really great because we are in like constant communication with our support staff. It's like a check-in
Yes.
every day, basically. It's this daily check-in of like, hey, this happened with this student. This is what's going on with this student. What do you suggest? Or I did this work, and we're just sharing that every day. So we don't just rely on like our bi-weekly meetings. It is an everyday check-in because we're lucky and fortunate enough to have that availability to one another.